Welcome back to Cannabis Coast to Coast News for this week. I'm Alaina Pinto. Now it's time for our international news block. The Czech Republic started the process for decriminalizing cannabis at the federal level. A bill was passed with 142 yes votes out of 159 to allow for possession at home of 100 grams of cannabis and 25 grams or just under 1 ounce of cannabis on your possession. It also has some provisions for growing at home, but limits that growth to just 3 plants per dwelling. And this bill moves on to the Czech Senate for approval and perhaps some amendments. So there's that. Now we start off our B block with Ben Stevens in Europe. He has more on that story from the UK as England moves to making changes in their cannabis laws.
I'm Ben Stevens, the editor of Business of Cannabis, with this week's news from Europe for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Cannabis Reform is back in the spotlight in a big way here in the UK this week as a landmark new report recommended the decriminalisation of cannabis possession, and a long-awaited review into medical cannabis has been requested by the government. The final report of the London Drugs Commission, led by former Justice Secretary Lord Charlie Falconer, has concluded that current cannabis laws are not fit for purpose, and that the possession of cannabis for personal use should no longer be a criminal offence. While stopping short of calling for full legalisation, the report did recommend cannabis be reclassified, moving it out of the Misuse of Drugs Act and into the Psychoactive Substances Act, effectively decriminalising personal possession while keeping production and supply illegal. The report also highlights the disproportionate impact of cannabis policing on ethnic minorities, an issue seen around the world, with black Londoners far more likely to be stopped and searched by police despite being no more likely to be carrying cannabis. Meanwhile, 7 years after it was legalised, the UK government has finally commissioned a formal review into the state of the UK's booming medical cannabis sector. While the private market for cannabis-based medicines has grown with over 300,000 prescriptions issued in the past year alone, NHS, the National Health Service access that is free, remains extremely limited, forcing many patients to turn to costly private care or illegal sources. Industry leaders and patient advocates say that this latest review must lead to action, not just more analysis. On this point, Professor Trevor Jones of the Cannabis Research and Development Group also pointed out that many of the points have already been covered in previous reports by the ACMD, stating that while the news is welcome, we cannot ignore the practical solutions that have been sitting on ministers' desks for years. For families of children with severe epilepsy, the stakes remain painfully high. Many are still paying thousands a month for treatment that they believe should be free on the NHS. That's all from me for this week. I'm Ben Stevens, the editor of Business of Cannabis, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
There's been a lot of merger and acquisition activity in the cannabis industry over the past week. One of the most successful recruitment agencies in the country is Vangst out of Denver, Colorado. This week, they were the ones making the acquisition. In this case, Vangst acquired 7 staffing and employment solutions, making it their third company acquisition over the past 13 months. Vangst now owns staffing groups in California, Oregon, and Colorado. Here in New England, in Connecticut, a cannabis company in that state called Butter, that's Budr, they have bought 3 more dispensaries in that state, including 4 from MSO, The Botanist. And now Butter operates 7 total cannabis stores in the Nutmeg State. No terms were announced. But in Virginia, there's been a battle between a local firefighter and the state over the rights given to medical cannabis patients who consume during private off-duty hours. A similar precedent happened in Jersey City, New Jersey last year. And this focus is on Virginia right now, where Joe Parsons has this story in his state report this week.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection from Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 3WV. And reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. A Norfolk City firefighter is attempting to challenge his dismissal for off-duty medical cannabis use. Brandon Beltane had dreamed of becoming a firefighter ever since he was a little boy and saw the 1991 classic movie Backdraft. And in 2018, he got his dream in Norfolk, Virginia. However, when he followed policy and reported that he had a medical card in August of 2022, he had struggles with HR that ultimately led to his dismissal, even though Virginia law had already enacted a law to protect state workers from termination due to off-duty cannabis use. After almost 3 years of fighting the case, his grievance will finally be heard this week in Virginia. Now, Virginia needs more laws enacted to protect not just state workers, but everyone in the Commonwealth, considering that cannabis is legal for both medical and recreational use. Beltane was using cannabis to deal with his depression, anxiety, and ADHD. This is very common in the life of a firefighter, as it's one of the highest stress level jobs in America. He had been taking prescription medications prior, but the severe side effects interfered with his personal and professional work. So when the city told him he could still lose his job, he continued to use cannabis, especially after stressful shifts. He was thinking the newly enacted laws would protect him. His case is important as it'll set a precedent on how similar cases will be handled in the future. He does intend to file a civil suit if his current case is unsuccessful. I personally wish him the very best in hopes that he gets to return to duty as soon as possible. Well, that's going to do it for this week from Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 3WB in Charlottesville, and reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, stay lifted.
Hey, I'm Jill Goldsberry here with the New Jersey Cannabis Report for Coast to Coast Cannabis News. And guys, it's about to be the summer of cannabis, and I've got the highlights of some of the things that have kicked it off. First, I had a conversation with an organization with the CEO of a mission called I Love Growing Marijuana. I Love Growing Marijuana was here in the area during 420 for their U.S. home grow tour. I got a chance to speak with Ernst Russhoven, the CEO, and we had a little conversation. I got his thoughts on the state of home grow in New Jersey and the state of home grow in general in this country during our cannabis revolution here. And you'll be very interested in hearing what he has to say. And I Love Growing Marijuana is a mission that aims to match or build relationships between seasoned cultivators and those who are newcomers and want to learn more about growing their own cannabis. So, and in other news in New Jersey, we have some celebrity power here. Okay, Faye Coleman, who is the owner, CEO, and founder of Pure Genesis dispensary in New Jersey. She has partnered with Whoopi Goldberg to launch Whoopi, which is a 10 milligram THC drink. It's going to be available nationally soon. The drink is a cross between, I would say it's kind of like an Arnold Palmer, but it's got the THC in it. So it's a lemonade and iced tea drink. There's a second drink that is a CBD-based drink that's called Pina Colada. It's like a pina colada with a kick. Both of them are delicious. You definitely have to try it if you get a chance. And we also have some new, I guess you could say we're about to have some movie stars in the cannabis industry. This is going to be very exciting. Okay, Kiss My Grass, the documentary by Mary Pryor. You all know Mary Pryor, entrepreneur, social justice, activist for the cannabis industry. She has produced a film called Kiss My Grass. It showed this week. It opened at the Tribeca Film Festival. And it is featuring New Jersey's own Butter Cake CEO, Martha Figueroa. So, if you get a chance to hit the Tribeca Film Festival, definitely go check it out. It highlights the struggles of Black women in this industry, exposes systemic issues, and also displays the resiliency and what Black women are doing to demand equity in this industry. So, if you get a chance, go see it. Tribeca Film Festival. I'm Jill Goldsberry with the New Jersey Cannabis Report for Coast to Coast Cannabis News.
With the uncertainty about the future of hemp and cash flow slowing down on the retail scene, investment capital has practically dried up, yet anytime you can go and attend an industry trade show, there is optimism and hope. There were two this week. The Cannabis World Congress and Business Expo has changed its name to Cannabis Means Business. That group took over New York City and the Javits Center. On hand there were some major media players, including Whoopi Goldberg and CNBC's Tim Seymour. Check out this lineup of powerful women from the industry, including event organizer Christine Iannuzzi on the far right and Whoopi Goldberg in the middle, with PCM TV friend Kimberly Burns from Tribe Tokes right in the middle there too. There was Cannabis 101 from California streaming live from the floor, and many others.
Where are we going? Where do you want to be? I want to be where I am right now, talking to people I'm talking to I am. Because the fact that this isn't even happening, you know how long we waited? We're in the Javits out there. We're in the Japanese and I mean, but remember what we used to have to hide? I couldn't say what we were doing, and there was so many preconceived ideas about marijuana. And right now, everybody here is showing that there are many, many facets to this marvelous plant.
But up the road in Massachusetts, in Northampton, was the third annual Flower Expo, and it took over the 3-county fairgrounds and welcomed thousands of businesses from all over the country. There were breakout sessions with some of the biggest names in the cannabis business speaking, and even PCM TV founder Jimmy Young live streamed a series of interviews with industry movers and shakers, including Rebecca Maestas Sincere, the VP of marketing for the Bud and Mary's brand out of Iowa. Deirdre Ruvito from Solar Therapeutics and Sean Curley from the Collab Group all joined Jimmy live on the WPCM TV network of distribution platforms. So here's Jimmy with more from the Flower Expo.
Megan Dobro, good to see you. Thank you so much for talking to me. What's so special about the Flower Expo? You've been here before, and what differentiates this show from other trade shows?
Yeah, Flower Expo is great because it's all the right people. It's all B2B. It's got the vibe of we're all hanging out, building relationships, not trying to sell, but just like hanging out together and spending face-to-face time. So it's really fun.
The people at this show respect the industry, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, everyone's got their own interests, but I think people are here because they love it, and it's not such a jaded crowd.
What differentiates the Flower Expo from other shows in New England or other trade shows in the cannabis space?
Sure, I think the Flower Expo is a great opportunity for the B2B side of things. You know, it's very much dedicated and directed towards the retailers, the buyers, but then they also add in the component of having the bud tenders here, right? We know the bud tenders make a real big impact when it comes to the purchasing or, you know, decisions that are happening at the front level. So I feel as though they're really doing a great job of bringing all of those people together in, in a 2-day event.
Well, this is it. We're going to wrap up our week here in Northampton at the Flower Expo, and I've got the brain trust of the Flower Expo right here, even though neither Jason Bello or Kai Brady will actually admit that they are the brain trust, because I think I know who the real brain trust is, but I'm not going to give that. I'm not going to enlighten you. Jason, what's your reaction after the last couple of days here in North? Did it live up to your expectations?
I think it was bigger than my expectations. I mean, it was a phenomenal show. We had over 100 brands exhibiting. I think 370 dispensaries were represented here by both the buyers and bud tenders. Day one was an all-out frenzy. It seemed like deals were getting done. People were selling cannabis, and it was a healthy sign of the industry. But day two, I think the vibes were high, a lot more bud tenders, more fun. And we love Northampton. It's just really an incredible new town that we're in, and the venue is great.
And the music has been awesome.
Awesome.
I recognize this music. That's what I love.
Nice, man.
Right? I can sing all the words, but I'm not gonna. Kai Brady, you know, when you hear Jason rant and rave about the numbers, and you, sir, are involved with all those numbers, not lost on me, how happy are you with how this show turned out, and what's the feedback you got from the people that are your clients?
Oh, I'm very happy with how it turned out. I think it was a great show. I mean, I think it's just elevated experience. We keep learning a little bit each and every year, and like every aspect was just a little bit elevated, a little bit improved, and it just came together for an awesome vibe. Deals getting done, bud tenders are having a good time, had some great speaking panels as well, so yeah, very happy all around.
There you go. And you know what? These shows are pretty amazing. But this is the first Flower Expo in Massachusetts. This is your third. And the other two always had a cloudburst or a harsh thunderstorm at the end of it. And I got to tell you, I wish I knew Mother Nature, because I could really use a cloudburst right now so that we could, or even jump in a lake somewhere. Would that be okay?
I'm pretty happy about the beautiful sunshine we've had. We're extremely fortunate.
Yeah, I like that. He's very appreciative of what you guys got. So for Kai and Jason, I'm Jimmy. Thank you so much for taking part in what we've done here out in Northampton this year at the Flower Expo. But I think you may see me at other Flower Expos in the future outside of Massachusetts. Are we cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we cool with that?
Absolutely.
We're coming to Michigan and we're coming to Illinois, right?
That's right.
Woohoo! Two of my favorite Midwest cities. We'll see you there.
Last week, the Chicago Clone Guy reported on a licensing freeze in his state of Illinois. Supposedly, this is just a pause by the state to let the market catch up with the demand. The added addition for this timeout gives more time for social equity licenses to get their operations going with a more realistic timeline. Mark Allen reports on what is going on in that state.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mark Allen, the Chicago Clone Guy, tuning in from just outside Chicago, Illinois. This is Bird. Thanks for tuning in to Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Illinois is always up to something. They decided that they are going to stop issuing adult use cannabis license permits. They have a cap of 500, which means they are going to stop giving out the remaining 130 to help current businesses get established, is what they say, allegedly, to help, these people that are having a slow going and rough economy get going, supposedly. The problem is most of the people with the permits aren't even operational at this point. The state has so many requirements and regulations and red tape to begin with that they've started with that they're not even up and running. For example, 88 companies are permitted to grow craft cannabis in the state of Illinois. 88. Right now, only 21 of those 88 are actually up and running. The reason they're not up and running is because of the bureaucratic and political hoops, red tape, problems that they have to go through. Costs, fees, all the red tape, that was created for them. So I appreciate Illinois trying to help the market, but if they really want to help the market, stop the barriers to entry, reduce the barriers to entry. You don't need to, try to change, hold back the market. They're literally holding back the market to help speed it up. So to me, that makes zero sense. Let's stop it to make it better. But that's what they're going to try now in this state. But that sums it up for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Mark Allen, the Chicago Clone Guy.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's Cannabis Stock Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Pipe Dreams is a dispensary in Asbury Park, New Jersey. It just rolled out a new payment system that lets customers buy cannabis with cryptocurrency. The system is powered by PDX Beam, and it converts crypto to cash instantly at checkout. No banks needed, no cash required. So far, about 12 out of 2,000 monthly sales are crypto, but owner Muhammad Heckle says it's just another way not to say no to money. With millions of crypto users and summer tourists flooding the shore, Pipe Dreams is betting this could grow fast, and Heckle even plans to bring crypto to smart vending machines in 4 states. Will crypto be the next big thing for cannabis? For now, it's an early experiment worth watching, and we've discussed crypto as a payment option for the cannabis industry before and how it could work, so I will be keeping you posted on how this is working. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News, I'm Doug Miller.
The first East Coast state to open for adult use of cannabis was our home state of Massachusetts, and now the more than $1 billion a year industry generates millions in state taxes. But it has been plagued by mismanagement, personality clashes, and now the state house is getting involved and might take the responsibilities away from the state treasurer and allow the governor to appoint leadership at the Cannabis Control Commission. With more from Massachusetts, here's Curtis Emery with the Bay State Cannabis Report.
I'm Curtis Emery, a bud tender from Resonate in Worcester, Massachusetts, with the Bay State Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. An understaffed CCC continues to push back voting on social consumption laws here in Massachusetts. The organization announced in December that it would have its decision in mid-2025. However, given the recent vacancies at the CCC, the vote has been pushed back at least twice, with Chairman Bruce Stebbins announcing that the vote will tentatively take place on the June 17th and 18th sessions. An omnibus bill now in front of the state government would attempt to alleviate such roadblocks going forward, changing the number of chairs needed for a quorum from 3 to 2. A continuing story here in Massachusetts, the House passes an act modernizing the Commonwealth's cannabis laws, sending the omnibus bill up to the Senate for a vote. On the table are many measures aiming to change both the state's control over the industry as well as implement changes that will be seen on the dispensary level. Such changes include increasing the adult use weight per day from 1 ounce to 2 ounces, instituting a complaint line on the state level, changing medical marijuana parameters, doing away with vertical integration requirements, as well as opening up dispensary markets for CBD consumables and topicals, and changing laws on THC-derived drinks at the dispensaries.
I'm Matthew Friedlander from Skagit Organics, reporting from my hemp garden with the Washington State Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast. So last week I reported from the Northwest Leaf Bowl, an annual award show here in Washington State. I'm going to talk about that event again because it was a historic event for the Washington State cannabis industry. This was the first time that a licensed cannabis retailer had on-site sales at an event. So Commencement Bay Cannabis was the licensed cannabis retailer, and they are owned by the Puyallup tribe, and the event took place on tribal land. So the tribes all have separate compacts with the LCB, the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board, and they are able to push the limits a little bit, and we are thankful for that. The LCB and the prevention community have long stood in the way of reform here in Washington State, and like many states, we are trying to pass cannabis hospitality legislation that would allow for this type of thing to happen. Banquet style permits and events where cannabis is sold and consumed. So it was a great event, a wonderful example to see how it can be done and to show the LCB that there is nothing to be afraid of, and this would actually be a boost to our cannabis industry here in Washington State. Obviously, our cannabis industry is struggling as it is in many other states. So we're looking forward to the upcoming legislative session. I know ours just ended, but we are working hard, like I said, on cannabis hospitality, home grow again, working on some patient access bills, and working on a bill to restructure the Liquor and Cannabis Board completely so that we can move our industry forward. So that's what I've got for you this week out of Washington State. My name is Matthew, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
That'll do it for the B block, but we have many more state reports for you in the C block, including the latest from the state of Ohio, where legislators there continue to tinker with the already existing cannabis laws and regulations. We'll hear from Christina Brisson, and PCM TV founder Jimmy Young talks with one of the most successful lobbyists in Ohio, Tim Johnson. Cannabis Coast to Coast News continues after this.
I think the legislators' good intent. By the way, thanks for having me, Jimmy. But I think the legislators, they have good intention.
What if we're right? What if all of a sudden they discovered that there is medical use for marijuana and that it is good for you and it's better than alcohol and it's better than opioids and it helps your health? What if we're right? What if they find that out?
Specific cannabinoids have medical value. These are facts.
I'm here today in hopes to assist in removing the demonized stigma of cannabis and the perception that cannabis is just about getting high. The true base of this plant has to be known.
I don't think anybody should ever go to jail for cannabis. It's a medicine, and everybody should have access to it.
This is something which, at the very, very least, is the key to alleviating suffering and extending life for millions of human beings. Right? For returning some kind of balance to our society, and quite possibly of restoring our planet's natural balance as well.